Journey of Meaning, Part 1. How far can meaning stretch? A delve into the elasticity of figurative language and particularly metaphor. We rarely notice how extraordinary language really is. Every day we recognize objects, describe experiences, express emotions and talk about ideas with little awareness of the complex processes that operate beneath ordinary speech. I am talking about how far we can stretch meaning. A child points to the sky and says it is blue. A patient tells a doctor that they feel knife in pain. A politician promises a brighter future. A poet writes of darkness visible. A songwriter invites us to contemplate marmalade skies or step into a purple haze. We understand all of these expressions despite the fact that they occupy very different relationships to reality. Often, these forms of language use have been studied separately in their own little silos. Linguistics concentrated mostly on literal meaning, metaphor theory on how concepts can be mapped, while literary theory focused on symbolism and musicology on lyrical imagination. But what if we consider the possibility that all these represent successive stages within a single journey of meaning? In this series of videos called The Journey of Meaning, we explore that possibility. I called it The Journey of Meaning because we should think of meaning as a journey. It starts with the things we can see, hear, and experience for ourselves. The sky is blue, the stone is hard. Then, as we try to make sense of those experiences, we begin using metaphors, telling stories, and creating symbols. Over time, those symbols become shortcuts, allowing a single image or phrase to communicate ideas that would otherwise take pages to explain. So, the journey begins with literal language. When we say the stone is hard or the sky is blue, we hardly notice what we are saying because these statements are so ordinary. But what they are actually doing is helping us connect objects with their most familiar qualities. Before we can compare ideas, tell stories, or create metaphors, we first need a way of describing the world around us. Before meaning can travel, it has to find its footing. Once we have established this stable footing, meaning can start to move. Here, we see qualities that once belonged to one thing begin to describe something else. Hardness is no longer just a property of stone. Roads can describe recovery. Weather can describe politics. Containers can describe our emotional lives. And stories take this even further. They layer these connections together, building richer and more complex ways of understanding the world. Some metaphors grow so large and become so entrenched that they end up shaping how we think about an entire subject. It becomes a worldview. It becomes policy on a state level. It can inform how one country should engage diplomatically with another country. Other metaphors go even further, creating imagined worlds where ordinary objects follow completely different rules, and this allows us to view reality from an entirely new perspective, through a different lens. So, the journey of meaning does not go on forever. It starts by helping us describe the word in reliable ways, and from there, meaning starts to move. It spreads through metaphors, then grows into stories, and even creates imagined worlds that help us see reality differently. In the final stage, it folds back in on itself, become concentrated but powerful symbols. For example, a colour can come to represent both desire and death, or a spiral can stand for history. At this point, symbols are doing much more than representing an idea, and they become a way of compressing an entire world of meaning into a single image, allowing us to recognize complex ideas almost instantly. This is much more than being about metaphors or figures of speech. It gives us an insight into how we, as human beings, organize our experiences, how we expand them into new ways of thinking, and eventually compress them into symbols that carry a huge amount of meaning. Thank you for listening. Mark Gibson, Kielder, United Kingdom, August 2026. Copyright asserted by Mark Gibson.